So maybe it's meditation, walking, journaling. If you're anything like me, those things tend to go out the window when I get really, really stressed.
Yeah, and we were laughing about this before we started this chat because it reminded me of how much I've been doing this lately. We've been very busy.
So this is a very real moment for us too, and a real reminder for us.
Yeah.
Welcome back to The Mindful Way with Tom and Heather. Today's topic is something that feels especially relevant to us right now, and we know it's something that we all deal with at times. So when we are at our busiest, we're at our most stressed, we've got a big launch going on, there's a big thing happening in our life, maybe you're getting married or you're going to a big wedding in your family, we tend to drop the rituals and the habits that really support us, that ground us, that give us a sense of peace when things get busy. And yet that's when we need them the most. So maybe it's meditation, walking, journaling. If you're anything like me, those things tend to go out the window when I get really, really stressed.
Yeah, and we were laughing about this before we started this chat because it reminded me of how much I've been doing this lately. We've been very busy.
So this is a very real moment for us too, and a real reminder for us.
Yeah. And I think it's not always as busy as it feels in our heads. And when we live in a society where hustle culture and being busy is part of our badge of honor, sometimes it can, just by dropping those things, it can make you feel like you're being more productive. But those things often are the essential parts of what actually give you the creative energy to do something meaningful rather than just doing something that keeps you busy.
Yeah. And when we're getting to a place of burnout, or we're already in a place of burnout, trying to be creative, trying to work hard and feel good about the work that we're doing is nearly impossible. So even though we're on this path where it feels like we can't step off to really take care of ourselves, the thing is that the work we're putting out isn't going to be anything like what we want to put out because we're just so stripped down with our ability to have energy and like really be intentional and focus. So I think sometimes it just comes up and we realize, okay, I've heard this quote where it's like, if you feel like you can't meditate for 5 minutes, you need 10 minutes.
Yeah. There's a book I've been reading called Slow Productivity by Cal Newport. And in it, he describes a lot of the most, what we would consider the most prolific and productive people throughout history who have created things that we're very familiar with. Einstein, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Isaac Newton, and Mary Shelley. And the process of these people is surprising because you would think that they were constantly working every day really, really, really hard. But you realize that that's not at all how they work. They had periods of productivity where maybe things were busier and they were really, really working hard. But they also had a lot of stillness in their rituals and in their lives.
It's like an ebb and flow.
Yeah, and that is, and actually in the book, he describes a lot about how that is kind of essentially the way humans are. We need that stillness in order to bring out the best in us. And it's only recently with the Industrial Revolution and all these other things that we've started to strip that down into productivity, meaning more and more time being put into what you're doing. And we're all caught in that wave. So finding that balance, slowing yourself down is essential to doing the right, like I said before, doing the right work and not just keeping yourself busy for the sake of being busy.
Lately, what I've really been trying to dig my heels in and make sure I'm doing is meditating. And I've realized just how important it is for me. I kind of liken it to a cold glass of water on a really hot day, or taking like a dip in the ocean on just like a really sweltering, humid day. Just there's this coolness because just everything sort of stills within me. And not that it's perfect every time. Sometimes my mind is going a mile a minute. But I think the point is that doing that, even if it's just for 3 minutes, something grounding for yourself, whether it's going for a walk or it's writing down your emotions, kind of just getting them out stream of conscious onto a piece of paper, that's just so powerful for how you show up the rest of the day, for how you feel. It doesn't mean everything's gonna be perfect, but I've just found those things to be profound. And even sometimes I'll have a headache and I will meditate and it will just help to ease the tension. So there's really is something there, even if meditation isn't your thing. If you haven't tried it and you've been curious, I highly recommend it. And you can find lots of free apps, of course, or YouTube videos. And not to kind of underestimate the power of just a few minutes with one of these practices.
I think one of the bigger reasons this is a problem is you can't really measure how much these rituals impact your actual productivity. It's not the same thing as how many essays you've written or how many widgets you've produced. If you're meditating and using up time where you could be writing more essays or you could be producing more widgets, inherently it feels like that's not productive time. It's much harder to quantify.
Yeah.
I think for me, my own personal journey, as I go through growth, as I grow as a business owner, as a person, I realize that there's a lot more weight in the non-measurable parts of owning a business. Everything, you're always into metrics and figuring things out and trying to have a hold on your numbers in life. And it's important, but at the same time, there needs to be a weight in the things that you can't measure. And this is one of those. True. This is one of those rituals or those practices.
So even if you can't see it in a numbers way, you can feel it if you're really tuned in to your body and just to kind of your energy throughout the day. So I think that's part of, like, a huge part of what this is too, is really giving yourself a moment just to tune in and be aware with how you're feeling. Like, do you have a headache? Are you really stressed? Like, are you feeling super burned out? Maybe that means you can just slow down. Maybe it needs to take something off your plate for today and push it to tomorrow. And so I think that's really what these mindfulness practices do, is they just bring you back into your head, into that sort of awareness, because that's like, we're the ones who need to take care of ourselves. Like, we're the one who know ourselves best.
And one final anecdote, as a wedding photographer, as a photographer, I often have a busier season and I have a season that's slower. And that slower season is something that I had to actually get used to in the beginning, because again, society tells me I need to be busy. I felt like I needed to be busy. I would always find ways to fill my time, and I still struggle with this. But what I've learned over doing it for a few years now is that slower season actually is essential to my personal growth and my business growth, because it allows me... Not even just your
growth though, just like your ability to just enjoy life, and you focus more on your hobbies. Tom paints, he takes photographs just for fun. So I want to make sure you're emphasizing that too. And this is what we want to help people with, is that you have built this life, which is really incredible with your business. And yes, your job tends to be more seasonal or our job with wedding photography, but you've also created flexibility in your schedule and allowed yourself to still make, a very livable salary. And I think that's a really, really intentional, beautiful thing, even if it's still a struggle sometimes to feel like you should be doing more.
Yeah. And I'm definitely, I'm grateful for that. And it's important to be able to emphasize that there's not just about personal growth, business growth or anything like that. But I think for some people who maybe are type A that are listening, or people, it can be really hard to let themselves have free time, and I think that's a very common theme in our society. So I also just want to validate to people that even if when you slow down, it actually has a positive impact on the big picture of your life. Because with that time reflecting, meditating, finding your own space, you'll find these things pop up in your mind about your future that wouldn't be possible if you were just grinding all the time.
That's so
and
true.
It changes. You can change your processes. You can look at where you want to go. You can, you get caught all the time in the daily grind. When you're caught in the daily grind, you actually miss out on planning your life in a way that aligns with your values. So not only is this space good for your mental health in the moment, and not only is it good for you to kind of divide your time in order to not just burn out working, but it also has a long-term impact on increasing your ability to move forward with intention.
So it's really easy to get caught up in the busyness of our lives, especially when things feel extra hectic. And we drop those things that make us feel really good, the workouts, the making sure we're drinking enough water throughout the day, the eating the healthy food. And maybe we won't be able to bring all that back at once, but it's really about small, tiny rituals you can make and go back to, even if it's for 5 minutes this day versus your normal 10 minutes.
So remember, it's slow and steady wins the race. It's not about, it's more about consistency, showing up every day, putting in 1 minute, maybe even instead of 20, 30 minutes here and there.
Yeah, and not beating yourself up when you miss a few days and when things get crazy.
Yeah, it's getting back on the horse. Knowing that it's going to be, as a matter of fact, that's important to remind everybody, is that like, this isn't about perfection either. I think sometimes you realize that you're never going to show up every day perfectly. And that's not the goal. The goal here is not to do this perfectly, and you're not a failure if you don't do it perfectly. It's that when you recognize you're not doing it perfectly, you go back to that self-trust, which we talked about last week, and say, okay, I will now begin again. I got this. Let's go again. And you just keep doing that over and over again. And it's not about perfection, and you'll show up for yourself more than most if you're just able to get back on that horse.
Yeah. The all or nothing mentality is actually pretty damaging in these circumstances, because we're much less likely to go back into something if we don't do it for a day or two, versus like, I'm human. Every day is going to be a little different. Some days I'm going to show up more than others, or maybe not at all with my meditation or whatever it is. And so again, it's just kind of giving yourself that grace. I think so much of what we talk about comes down to that.
Yeah. It's consistency over perfection. And in a way, that's a sort of perfection in my mind.